In your headlines tonight, Sri Lankan threatens to blow up aircraft mid-air. He was arrested in Australia.
First at 9. This is Other Derana 24/7.
A raft topples in Mathura, killing 3, increasing the disaster death toll to 206. Nearly 700,000 affected across the island. Actions of politicians with narrow political agendas resulted in the disaster, says President. Appeals Court rejects writ petition filed by Perpetual Treasuries against Central Bank Directive. Our dear brother Amila Hemal bids farewell. Good evening. The funeral of one of our kindred spirits, Amila Hemal, a producer at Derana Media Network, was held today at the Niyandagala Public Cemetery in Homagama. Amila passed away on Tuesday at the tender age of 28. He was an untimely farewell that sent ripples of grief through all those who held him dear.
Amila Hemal was a vibrant personality in the Derana family, and his unexpected passing leaves a void that can never be filled. Amila's funeral was held today, and countless schoolmates, artists and media personalities paid their last respects to a truly beloved colleague.
Thank you. අපිට දැනුනේ අපි සමග
Amila's last rites were performed at the Niyandagala Public Cemetery in Homagama.
Now let's take a look back at the life of Amila Hemal, who showed unlimited promise and touched hearts wherever he was. Amila Hemal, who completed his education at Thurston College, Colombo, was an all-round artist. He entered broadcasting from the Aturu Mitru program at the Rupwahini Corporation. Amila joined the Derana family in August 2012 as an assistant producer of news and programs. He contributed as a producer for political and current affairs programs such as Derana Aruna, Lokaya Saha Lokayo, Vadapitiya and Nithiyata Ida. Moreover, he reached a wide audience as a host for programs such as Art Week.
Me, Art Week.
Tsunami Anniversary, Heta Nodakina at Parapura and Sri Pada Vandana are few of the programs produced by him which serve as a proof of his quality and opportune use of television. He was presented the Gold Award last year as one of the best employees of the Derana newsroom. During the recent disaster situation, he came forward to actively participate with the Derana family on behalf of the affected people. Just hours before his passing away, Amila Hemal composed a song with the intention of creating a discussion in society about those who are affected by the floods.
ඉර මුදුන් වෙන්න කලින් මේ ගමන යන්නත් එපේ. කාලා බීලා නාලා කරලා හිමීට එහෙම මේ ගමන බොහොම පරිස්සමට යන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් බුදු සරණයි දෙවි පිහිටයි කියලා මේ ගමන මේ විදිහට පිටත් වෙනවා.
Certainly a loss to us at the Derana family, and may he attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. We move on to our other top headline stories tonight. The Sri Lankan national who threatened to hijack a Malaysian Airlines flight from Melbourne to Kuala Lumpur last night was arrested today. Following the chaos in the plane's cabin less than a quarter of an hour after takeoff, the flight had to return to the Melbourne International Airport.
Flight MH128 left Melbourne for Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia at around 11:11 last night. Shortly after takeoff, 25-year-old Manod Marks tried to enter the plane's cockpit, claiming that he possessed an explosive and that he would blow up the flight. With the assistance of passengers, the flight crew was able to subdue and incapacitate him. The flight landed safely after returning to origin, and the suspect was arrested, with police assuring that the incident was not terror-related. According to passengers, the suspect carried an unusual object, which was later confirmed by the police not to be an explosive.
In the seat, everyone in the seats.
Everyone put your heads down, please.
Everyone in the seats.
Everyone put your heads down, please.
According to the Chief Commissioner of Victoria Police, Graham Ashton, the suspect was released from a psychiatric facility earlier yesterday. Ashton said Marks had been living in Melbourne on a current visa, clarifying earlier information that he was an Australian citizen.
What I can tell you about the male is that his history would appear to have mental illness. We do not believe this is terrorist related at the moment. We are obviously concerned for the passengers and crew. It would have been a very traumatic experience for them. We are now...
Malaysian Airlines said the Airbus A330 carrying 337 passengers and crew was in the air for just 30 minutes of its scheduled 8-hour flight time before landing.
Moving on to the current disaster situation, 3 members of the same family, including a teenager, lost their lives today as their raft toppled over in Thalgaswala, Mathura. Figures released by the Disaster Management Centre placed the current death toll at 206, with 92 people missing and 658,490 affected in the recent floods and adverse weather conditions.
The raft toppled when a family travelled to Thalgaswala in Mathura to attend a funeral. Bodies of a 42-year-old man, a 40-year-old mother and her 14-year-old son was recovered this morning after a search operation by the Sri Lankan Navy. They were residents of Attudava in West Narugala. At the time of the incident, flood waters were at a height of approximately 7 feet.
The navigator of the raft was from the Navy. They were with him. The raft toppled near the river.
Reportedly, a 30-year-old seaman of the Navy who navigated the raft survived the incident and was immediately admitted to the Mathura hospital.
Her husband also drowned a few years ago. Her father died around 8 a.m. and they were on their way to attend his funeral.
Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Navy advises people affected by floods not to return to their inundated homes using small boats or rafts due to strong rapids. Speaking to Ada Derana, the media spokesperson of the Sri Lanka Navy, Lieutenant Commander Chaminda Valakuluge said that people should be attentive and should not return to their houses until the water levels come down to the knee level. The Nilwala entrance in Mathura was inundated for the last few days. However, the situation at present has turned for the better.
Ada Derana meanwhile visited several affected areas to inspect the current situation. One of the locations was a relief camp in Ratnapura, where those displaced are left without electricity for long periods of time and lack basic necessities.
200 persons who were displaced by inclement weather in the Ratnapura district are sheltered at the Weval Kadura College in Kalawana. Reporters who visited this relief camp last night witnessed the hardship and challenges families had to face in their current living situations. Families who have lost all their belongings are now challenged with rebuilding their lives amid financial difficulties. Children were seen studying in darkness with candles as their only source of light.
She is blind and she is crippled. She is unable to care for herself. I had to carry her and bring her here. The principal is funding the generator with his own money. We run it for 2 hours and then switch it off when we are low on fuel.
This is not the safest place, but we have nowhere else to go. If it continues to rain, we won't be able to stay here.
Meanwhile, in the district of Kalutara, low-lying areas of Uduvara, Pathagama, Delgoda, Yatavara and Vegamo still remain inundated. Floodwaters affecting several areas including Lower Naragala, Upper Naragala and Bovita cannot recede due to the accumulated debris under the Bulat Singhala Naragala bridge. The body of a victim who passed away in the area was handed over to relatives in order to perform last rites today. Meanwhile, a 14-year-old child died when he was swept away by floodwaters in Pathagada Horana. A body of a 4-year-old was also discovered in Ellamodara Junction in Kalutara. However, Baddegama village and surrounding areas remain inundated. Meanwhile, a team of officials from the Department of Irrigation inspected the water levels of the Ging River today.
President Maithripala Sirisena says the present disaster which affected thousands is the result of actions of certain politicians who blocked the implementation of proposals in the development process to win over the public with votes and elections in mind. The President said this during a meeting of the Special District Coordination Committee at the Galle District Secretariat today.
Whose fault is it that Ratnapura and Kalutara ended up in this state? When the former ministers attempted to implement relevant programs in Ratnapura, they were booed off by the opposition. The program was not allowed to be implemented. This happens due to the preferential voting system and by having votes in mind. All factions have a responsibility to enlighten the public on facts and save people in relevant localities from natural disasters. It is also important that the government recommendations are allowed to be implemented in these developments. All the plans formed by foreign engineers along with local ones were not allowed to be implemented in most areas by some politicians. The government has decided to gain the assistance of all in this endeavour and commence it from Ratnapura.
Following the meeting, President Maithripala Sirisena officially handed over relief aid to the District Secretary of Galle. Afterwards, the President called a meeting with the parliamentarians of the governing party at the Presidential Secretariat to discuss the current disaster situation. During the meeting, he appointed 24 ministers of areas which are not affected by floods as organizers of electorates affected by the disaster for coordination purposes. The President handed over the letter of appointment to the ministers who were thus appointed as new organizers of disaster-affected electorates. Accordingly, the head of state vested the responsibility to coordinate the program to revive the lives and provide relief to those affected on the newly appointed electorate organizers. Meanwhile, yesterday during a meeting of the Interreligious Council, President Maithripala Sirisena stressed the need for a common program for laws to be enforced on preventing religious conflicts within the country and to advise various factions which stir up the unrest. During the meeting at the Presidential Secretariat attended by religious leaders of all religions, ministers and government officials, the head of state added that all religious leaders should unite upon a common platform for this purpose.
Meanwhile, certain Sri Lanka Freedom Party members expressed views on the appointment of new electoral organisers during a media briefing convened by the SLFP today.
Once the distribution of cooked food is over, we will distribute dry rations for a week. The government has taken a decision to provide up to 2.5 million rupees in compensation for damaged houses. Meanwhile, the ministers in areas not affected by the disaster submitted a letter to the President claiming responsibility for a disaster-affected electorate with a view of working in the electorate for 3 months.
මාස 3ක කාලයක් ඒ ආපදාවන්ට ලක්වුණු ප්‍රදේශවල මේ කටයුතු වල යෙදෙන්න ඕන. මාර දේශපාලකයන් කියලා තිබුණා.
Some politicians say the army did a great deal and not the government. In that case, the war is fought by only the army, not by the government, and that is why we always say that Mahinda Rajapaksa provided leadership. There were other organizations with the media organizations when providing relief to the disaster-affected people. Off-road clubs helped a great deal when accessing difficult areas by creating alternative routes.
Some countries propose that we announce a state of emergency so that they can provide more donations. But President did not agree on that because we have to think of the psychological state of the people.
We could get a large amount of donations if we declare a state of emergency. Questions like this is the reason we didn't.
The Manusat Derana humanitarian initiative continued the distribution of goods which were collected at the Derana head office in Colombo even after the campaign came to a close. Manusat Derana officially brought its collections and distribution campaign to a close at 4 p.m. yesterday. Hundreds of vehicles, including 300 lorries, have been dispatched across the country to distribute much needed aid to the public. And you're reminded that following the campaign's end, no more aid will be collected.
Manusat Derana started its humanitarian campaign to help those affected due to the adverse weather condition across the country last Saturday. Even though the campaign officially ceased at 4 p.m. yesterday, we continued to receive a large supply of relief goods last evening. Just as before, aid poured into our head office this morning as well.
I have come here to give foodstuffs for the flood victims, and I know this Derana is very sure and the stuff will be given to them, and I'm quite happy and to help the people who really are desperate.
Donors from the Liaoning Enterprises Association also donated funds to Manusat Derana for flood victims across the country.
Sri Lanka and Liaoning has enjoyed sound partnership, and I like to express my profound appreciation to our friends. And we heard about this flood and terribly sorry about it. We'd like to do something. We hope our donation could be a little help.
In addition to the collection point at the Derana head office, there were 11 other locations to receive relief supplies from the public. The accumulated relief goods were distributed to many affected areas. The relief supplies collected at Rajopavanarameya Temple, Gatambe, were distributed to areas including Gaul, Matara and Ratnapura. The campaign received donations from foreigners as well.
We have a lot of water and food, and here in the Gatambe Temple we're collecting a lot of stuff for the victims of the floods. We're really happy that Manusat Derana organized such a big action for the victims of the floods, so we're really thankful for Manusat Derana.
Bottled water was distributed at the Pitabhadra Divisional Secretariat, while relief collected at the Sama Viharya in Anuradhapura was distributed among the flood victims. Aid was also distributed to Nagoda, Alpitiya and Orangulla. The Suhada Eksat Samitiya in Malabe also supported Manusat Derana to distribute relief to the Paranathanayamgoda Grama Seva division in Nagoda. Meanwhile, the Red Cross lent Manusat Derana a hand in distribution to Kamburugamuwa in Matara. Affected people in Telidjavila, Dampella area in Matara were also beneficiaries of these goods, and with the support of the Gaul prison, goods were distributed to people in the Udugama area. Meanwhile, the Government Medical Officers Association held clinics in several areas including Ayagama, Udugama, Matara and Kalutara.
And the Ministry of Education will provide disaster-affected school children with all basic school supplies free of charge, with their examination certificates lost due to the disaster situation also being replaced by the Department of Examinations without any cost.
We will provide all disaster-affected school children with 3 sets of uniforms each, a set of textbooks, exercise books and a pair of shoes free of charge. Some questioned why schools were closed in Colombo. However, further study has revealed that most students attending Colombo schools are from areas such as Ratnapura, Kalutara and Gampaha. Tomorrow, we will decide on which schools in which areas should be reopened.
Meanwhile, the journalists present also had some questions on vehicle imports for parliamentarians.
The process of obtaining vehicles has been stopped. However, if politicians of the previous government return their vehicles, we would not have to buy new ones. The government only spends 7 to 8 million rupees on a vehicle. The high prices mentioned include import taxes applicable in imports. We have decided to establish a special fund to cater to the needs of disaster-affected school children. The governing party has decided to donate the parliamentarians' basic salary to the cause, which is 54,285 rupees. In fact, much more has already been contributed.
In your top business news today, the Court of Appeal today rejected the writ petition filed by Perpetual Treasuries Limited against restrictions imposed by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka on its activities. The petition was rejected as it was taken into consideration before a bench headed by Justice Rohini Walgama today. According to our reporter, the State Council pointed out that the petition should not be accepted since there is a discrepancy on the registered name of the company. Then the council, who appeared on behalf of the Perpetual Treasuries Company, expressed their inclination to withdraw the petition. Yet the State Council opposed the request and proclaimed that the petition filing fees should be charged. The said petition was filed by Perpetual Treasuries Limited in February 2017. The company drew attention following the controversial bond issuance of February 27, 2015. Let's now take a look at some stories making news in the local business arena.
The Lakshman Kadirgam Institute has signed a memorandum of understanding with the MGF Group, establishing a 3-year partnership to support the Institute's Global Economy program. Speaking at an event held in appreciation of corporate support for research at the Institute, Deputy Minister of Policy Planning and Economic Development Dr. Harsha De Silva stated that he hoped to see other global brands also join in promoting efforts in economic diplomacy.
We take our name, our brands to the world. We are delighted to work with Sri Lankan brands that have already created and established a name overseas. There are things for us to learn from these companies that have succeeded, where we have not really yet succeeded.
HMT Global has launched its first Nokia smartphone range in Sri Lanka with the national mobile service provider Mobitel as its official telecommunications partner. The series, comprising of the Nokia 3, Nokia 5 and Nokia 6, is expected to ascend retail shelves soon. The Sri Lanka Institute of Marketing held a media briefing in anticipation of the visit of Don Kaufman, a front-runner in marketing and spearhead of Pioneer Thought Cultures. He will be in Sri Lanka on the 18th and 19th of July at the invitation of SLIM and will lead a public forum titled Service Leadership, The Inevitable.
And the Colombo Bourse edged higher today and both indices closed on positive territory. The all-share price index concluded 19.36 points higher, while the S&P SL20 index gained about 14 points. Turnover was around 1 billion rupees, driven by activity in Sampath and Lion Brewery. Foreign investors in the meantime were net buyers of 60 million rupees. We now move on to our daily update with Imeshu Fernando.
Top 5 gainers of the day were Raigams Holtons, SNB Leasing, Adam Capital, Paragon Ceylon and Ceylon Development, while the top 5 losers were Kottagal Plantation, Tokyo Cement Non-Voting, Tokyo Cement, Ceylon Leather, Bansai Royal Resorts.
The Sri Lankan rupee ended slightly firm today as the dollar selling by exporters outpaced importer demand for the US currency, even as investors weighed the consequences of weather-related damage to the Sri Lankan economy. We now take a look at the way Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during today. In your sports stories, the ICC Champions Trophy began earlier today with hosts England playing Bangladesh at the Oval in the opening encounter. But before we go to that story, last evening Sri Lanka Cricket announced that skipper Angelo Matthews will most likely miss the opening game of the ICC Champions Trophy. Matthews, who returned to lead the side after several months, had complained of stiffness and pain, prompting the team management to conduct radiographic investigations which revealed a muscle pain. Matthews' absence would be regarded as a substantial blow to Sri Lanka, as he appeared to be in good batting form, having struck 95 of 106 deliveries against Australia in Sri Lanka's first warm-up game. And moving back to the Champions Trophy story, where the championship began with hosts England playing Bangladesh at the Oval. Having lost the toss, Bangladesh were put into bat and scored 305 for 6 in their 50 overs, with Tamim Iqbal scoring a 142 ball, 128 runs, while Mushfiqur Rahman provided excellent support with 79 of 72 deliveries. And in your international stories, Chinese and EU leaders will tomorrow agree a joint statement on the Paris Climate Agreement, saying it is an imperative more important than ever. A draft of the document was released to international media and is seen as a rebuff to US President Donald Trump, who is expected to announce America's withdrawal from the accord later tonight.
Chinese and EU officials have been working for more than a year to agree a joint statement on climate change and clean energy, and are expected to highlight the dangers posed by rising temperatures to society and national security. Chinese Prime Minister Li Keqiang confirmed China's stance at a meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel today.
China will stand by its responsibility on climate change, and China doesn't stand alone in this question.
However, the increased cooperation between the EU and China comes as reports indicate cooling in the US towards the Paris Accord, and sources have been quoted in the US media suggesting US President Donald Trump will pull out.
I think that if the president goes ahead and pulls the United States out of the Paris Agreement, joining Syria and Nicaragua as the only other two countries in this whole wide world to be outside, I think it would be a very damaging thing for his legacy.
Before we go, let's take a look at how the weather forecast is for the next 24 hours.
Thank you, Indivari. Now, although the sun was out during the day here in Colombo, it's advised not to put away your umbrellas as yet. Now, if you look at the satellite image, we can expect rain in certain areas of the southwest region of the country, and fairly heavy rainfall of about 75 millimeters can be expected in Colombo, Kalutara, Gampaha, Ratnapura, Vavuniya and Kegol districts. Wet weather can also be expected in the eastern Uva, north central provinces, particularly in the afternoon. Temperatures are to vary between 24 to 32 degrees Celsius in key cities across the island, with Trincomalee expected to reach a sizzling 32 degrees Celsius. That's it from the Weather Centre. Let's now take a look at the city-by-city weather forecast.
And we'd like to wrap up the news, but before we go, we'd like to leave you with some visuals of the Manusat Derana humanitarian campaign. Although we came to a close yesterday for collection and distribution, relief kept pouring into the Derana head office, as we did mention. So we leave you with these visuals. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.